Now you're unmuted. Okay, hello.
Should I say hello?
Yeah.
Well, hello.
You need to be.
Hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, they can hear me. Yeah, we're good now. How do I want to mute it.
Oh, you want to
Okay,
mute
then
it?
just do this.
It's just
I see Mr. Simpson has his technical assistant
Yeah.
helping him out with the computer.
He's for sale, Mr. Mayor. If you need any help around the house, just keep him for a couple of years. I get math problems here I don't understand.
Yeah.
Now he's got to go to his Zoom meeting now for his class. So we're getting all zoomed up here.
All right, we're to the witching hour here. Are we ready to go, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All right, I'll call this meeting of Lakewood City Council for Monday, May 18th to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boki,
Present.
Councilmember Brandstetter,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Moss,
Here.
Councilmember Simpson,
Here,
Deputy Mayor Whalen,
Present.
and Mayor Anderson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance, move to public comments. Public participation in public comments was accepted via mail and email. Comments were sent to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk at B Schumacher, that's BSCHUMACHER at cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting were provided to the City Council electronically. Comments received after the deadline will be provided to the City Council after the meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please identify or read the names of anyone who has submitted comments that have been transmitted to the council, please?
Mayor Anderson, we did receive public comments from a Mr. John Eastlake, Lakewood resident. Those comments were emailed to the City Council in advance of the meeting.
And I can confirm that I have seen them. I suspect everyone else has also. So we'll now move to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of April 27th, 2020. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of May 4th, 2020. C, motion number 2020-23, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Quig Bros, Inc. in the amount of $2,279,049 for the Harry Todd Waterfront renovation project. D, motion number 2020-24, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Tucci & Sons, Inc. in the amount of $1,120,422.30 for the Fort Stillwell Park Angle Lane South project. E, motion 2020-25, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Doolittle Construction LLC in the amount of $281,029 for the 2020 chip seal program. F, motion number 2020-26, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Asphalt Patch Systems, Inc. in the amount of $207,866 for the 2020 roadway patching program. G, motion number 2020-27, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Transportation Systems, Inc. in the amount of $237,690 for the 2019 CDBG streetlight project. And H, ordinance number 734, amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget.
Thank you. Mr. Caulfield, I understand there's an issue with item D regarding the calculation of the retention. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. And my suggestion would be to pull that and to take action on that separately, given that we had a bit of a math miscalculation on the contingency dollar amount.
All right, so we'll pull item D from the consent agenda and consider it separately. Is there any other item which any member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Simpson, seconded by Ms. Farmer, that we approve the consent agenda as published, less item D, which is motion number 2020-24. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now go to motion number 2020-24. Mr. Caulfield?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. So first of all, I want to thank Councilmember Branstetter for pointing this out. So in the original material in your packet, it showed that the contingency calculation of 9% totaled $115,000. However, it should total $101,650, meaning that the consideration before you is for a base contract of $1,129,442.30, plus a 9% contingency in the amount of $101,650. Oh, and the contractor is Tucci and Sons.
Can I entertain a motion on this?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Mr. Wayland, seconded by, wave your hand, Mr. Simpson, that we adopt motion number 2020-24 with clarification from Mr. Caulfield. Is there any further discussion? Well, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wait, hold on, Mr. Branstetter.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that by email, we received a substitute motion 2024 that has the corrections that the city manager has spoken to. So just to clarify that the motion is not the motion that's in the packet, but that the motion is for the substitute motion that was provided by email.
Well, I indicated that it was as corrected by Mr. Caulfield, yes. The figures he entered with $101,000 retention. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Nay. Number 2020-24 carries. Now move to the regular agenda, public hearings and appeals. Public testimony and public hearings will only be accepted via mail or email at this time. Comments should be sent to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk, at B Schumacher, that's BSCHUMACHER at cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting will be provided to the City Council electronically. This is the date for a public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 CDBG annual action plan and the 5-year 2020-2024 consolidated plan. For this, we have Mr. Gum. Maybe. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the hearing tonight is the 5-year annual action plan 2020 to 2024, as well as the 20 annual action plan. Couple of things I wanted to kind of go through and make sure that we're all aware of, since there's so many CDBG things going on. There's two separate and distinct processes that we've been discussing. So this is the 5-year annual action, sorry, the 5-year plan, as well as the 2020 annual action plan.
Thank
In
you.
previous council meetings, we had multiple discussions concerning the COVID funding. So there's CDBG, CV funding that's independent of this action. And it was approved, I believe, in your previous council session as well. So there's kind of two moving parts that we're doing, but this is the 5-year plan moving forward. So the public participation process for this 5-year plan is a 2-step process. There's a requirement to have a hearing in the middle of the plan, a 30-day comment period, as well as a comment period at the beginning. Excuse me, my voice won't clear tonight. So the city began this process on February 12th. We did have an initial public hearing. We, as well as the city of Tacoma, engaged the public. We engaged providers and numerous individuals and organizations. They provided input to us. We took that forward. We've moved to the 30-day public comment period, which was April 18th through May 18th today. From this point, we will take it forward on June 1st to council with approval of funding, and then to HUD for approval of the plan and funding for the city as CDBG funds for the city. The specific programs funds that we're looking to allocate for 2020 would be $506,863.07 for the major home repair sewer loan program. $45,000 for the emergency assistance for displaced residents program, $10,000 for CDBG funding of the home services program. And the other funding piece would be an admin piece, 20% of the funding, so $119,201.20 for the admin piece. This is a joint program with the city of Tacoma, so we're in a home consortium, so there is home funding connected with this as well. This plan would propose to fund in 2020 3 different programs: a tenant-based rental assistance program in the amount of $148,464, an affordable housing loan fund, it's in the amount of $150,000. And then 10% of the funds go to City of Tacoma for administration of the home program. So that would be $33,163. So the home program is looking to allocate a total of $331,627. The CDBG program is looking to allocate $681,064.27. So with that, do I have any questions or comment?
Questions for Mr. Gum?
No.
Seeing no hands raised. Madam Clerk, has any member of the public submitted a comment on this public hearing?
Mayor Anderson, no public comments or public testimony was received on this public hearing.
And, you know, this is a little bit different than the open public comment, that it's a public hearing. We have to close a public hearing. So having received no comments from the public hearing is closed. We now move to the next public hearing. This is the date set for a public hearing on the small cell wireless facility franchise agreement with New Cellular Wireless LLC, which is AT&T. For this, we have Ms. Kelly Fong.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Tonight is the night for a public hearing on small wireless facility franchise agreement with New Singular Wireless LLC, which is AT&T. The draft was previously reviewed at the City Council study session on May 11th. Are there any questions I can answer for the City Council?
Questions for Ms. Kelly Fong? Mr. Branstetter? You're muted, Mike.
I had a question that regarded the comment that we received from Mr. DeVore by email. And he seemed to be concerned around items going on goals of his utility company, Lakeview Light and Power. But our ordinance doesn't either prohibit or direct Lakeview to allow these. Is that correct?
That is correct. Anybody, any third party, AT&T would have to get written permission in order to put their small wireless facilities on their equipment.
So he would be able to address his concerns directly with AT&T if he was approached by them.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So Ms. Schumacher, there has been at least one public comment from, would you identify the commenter and let us know if there were any others that have been submitted?
Mayor Anderson, we received one comment from Mr. John DeVore, CEO and General Manager of Lakeview Light and Power. Other than that, no comments have been received.
And as Mr. Brandstetter indicated, that comment was provided to council before the public hearing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, seeing that there are no other public comments that have been submitted, I declare this public hearing closed. We move to the next item of business, resolutions. Resolution number 2020-06, Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-06, adopting the 2020 Lakewood Parks and Recreation Legacy Plan.
And for this, we have Ms. Kelly Fong again.
Good evening again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Before you is Resolution 2020-06, which would adopt the 2020 Legacy Plan, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan for the City of Lakewood. Materials start on page 99 of your packet. Notably, the plan that is proposed is a strategic guide. It does not commit the city to any resources or particular action. A memorandum was included on page 101 of your packet, providing follow-up from the City Council study session that was reviewed on April 27th, 2020. It is recommended that the City Council adopt Resolution 2020-06. Alternatively, the City Council could elect to alter the plan or elect not to adopt the plan at all. I am happy to answer any additional questions the City Council may have regarding the 2020 Legacy Plan.
Questions for Ms. Kelly Fong?
Mr. Simpson.
Seeing that, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we adopt resolution number 2020-06. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to resolution 2020-07, excuse me, Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-07, authorizing the city manager to seek grant funding assistance managed through the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, the American Lake Park Waterfront Access Upgrades, WWRP Local Parks 20-149D, ALEA 20-1760D, Wards Lake Park Enhancements Phase 1, LWCF 19-1740D, WWRP Local Parks 20-1761D, LWCF Standard 20-1763D, Youth Athletic Fund Pump Track 20-1764D, and Fort Steilacoom Park Artificial Turf Infields Youth Athletic Fund 20-1765D.
Thank you. For this, we have Ms. Dodsworth.
Evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and City Council. Thanks for already accomplishing step one of what needed to be a two-step requirement in order to apply for grants for City of Lakewood future park projects. CO requires an authorizing resolution to apply for grants. They do support and manage a variety of grants through their organization, and so they will allow us to put all of them on one resolution, which is nice. So we've listed out a variety of projects that we hope to be pursuing grant funding for. 3 different sites, but a variety of grants to support them. We've been quite successful in the past. We try and get grants that can match each other so that it does reduce the impact to our general fund. And then besides these grants, of course, we're always looking at partnerships and ways to support our projects to get the biggest bang for our local dollar. I'm happy to answer any of your questions about the specific projects, programs, or grant eligibility elements.
Questions from Ms. Dodsworth? Where did the term pump track come from?
Yeah, that's
A pump track, it's a new term because of the nature of the movement that you make on it. You go up and down as opposed to pedaling, even though there is some pedaling involved. And it helps momentum to go up and down. It's a series of bumps like this. So I guess pump is the term based on body movement.
I learned something new. Now remembering is a different issue. Any other questions for Ms. Dodsworth? I'd entertain a motion on resolution number 2020-07.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Simpson, seconded by Ms. Farmer, that we adopt resolution number 2020-07. Is there any further discussion? Will all those in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to unfinished business. Motion number 2020-28. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2020-28, adopting a zero interest deferred loan program up to $10,000 to Lakewood businesses with 10 or fewer employees under the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, CARES Act.
For this, we have Mr. Buer. Or Mr. Gum, or both of them.
I'm going to go ahead and let Jeff start, and then I'll add as necessary, if that's okay. Jeff?
All right. Good evening again. So again, before you all is a resolution, or it's a motion to approve the Forgivable Loan Program. I believe on May 4th, we were before you with the presentation to define the loan program. There was council discussion, and we were directed to bring back a deferred loan program. So on page 517 of your agenda packet, we've included attachment A that breaks down the loan program as proposed. We are proposing a 0% deferred loan program, terms of 4 years. The first year would be a deferred loan payment, no payments for the first 12 years. The next 3 years would be the loan terms where they would begin payments. The 50% deferred loan would have 2 conditions. 1, that they either create or retain jobs. And 2, that they're timely in their repayment for the first half of their loan payments. The other thing that we would look to do would bring it back to council early in 2021 in January for you all to review and to look at the loans that we have outstanding, the terms that are being considered, and forgive those loans. So with that, I turn it back to council or to Dave if he has anything else to add.
The only thing that I would add is that we attempted to try to glean as much information into these proposals that we received from the council discussion previously. Attachment A is the zero interest deferred or forgivable loan program. Attachment B, if that's the direction that the council wanted to go as an option, would be in the form of a grant. Attachment B shows the changes in language that would be a part of that grant. The other piece of information that I would provide is on page 518. We provided an example of what a 10,000 forgivable or deferred loan would look like under the example. So that's the only additional information I would provide, and we're here to answer any questions the council may have.
Questions for Mr. Buer and Mr. Gum? Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Buer, Mr. Gum, did you gentlemen write this?
Yes, we did.
Yes,
All
we
right.
did.
All right, I want to compliment you on this. I appreciated the fact, and it showed in the work as well as the comments you made in the introduction, that you did listen to the council, and I am very appreciative of that. Secondly, I think you did a very nice job of capturing what the 7 of us were getting at on May 4th. And in a sense here, I'm signaling to my colleagues that I like this. I'm very pleased with this work toward the middle rather than to the edges approach. I do, however, have one question. While I understand the business owner will pay back 50%, and if they're good on that 50%, they're forgiven the other 50%, and that they have a 4-year period of time in which to do this, I wonder if maybe the 4 years is a bit too generous, and that could have been a 3-year repayment window. And I'm wondering if there was any discussion about the timing. I'm good with the 50-50, but I think the length of time, and it's not a hard point with me because I like this as it is, but I think 4 years might be going just a little too long. And the reason I say that is the sooner the city recaptures some of those dollars, the sooner the city can help other small businesses. Thank you.
I'll start off. I first wrote this at 5 years. And then Jeff and I communicated on it and felt that his approach would be 4 years. And if you take a look at the difference in payment schedules, there's not that much difference.
All right. Okay.
The other thing that I would also say, and please, I say this in a respectful manner, I hope the council's not overthinking this, because you do get another crack at this in the early part of 2021. The other part, which we haven't really discussed, is, and it's coming forward, we just don't have enough information, but Department of Commerce is also proposing some additional grant funds for businesses who are having difficulties. We just don't know if it's a grant or it's a loan or the amount yet. And so that's why having another bite at the apple makes a whole lot of sense.
Thank you.
Mr. Branstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gum, I wanted to clarify that as these loans are repaid, they will go in and they will become reprogrammable CDBG dollars, not necessarily having to be reinvested as other loans. They could be reprogrammed as any other CDBG income.
That is correct. Setting up the loan program, you typically decide whether it's going to be a revolving loan fund, so they're used for that same activity, or not a revolving loan fund, and then you just allocate those in the next year's funding cycle.
Okay, so I didn't see anything in the proposal before us that answers that question about are we establishing a revolving loan fund, or are we making a 1-year commitment of resources into a program?
It was my understanding, based on council discussion, that as funds came back, we were looking to reallocate those to other businesses as quickly as we could. So we would be looking at a revolving loan fund for this program.
So in the documents we were provided today, either Appendix A, okay, where is that laid out?
It's not in the appendix. It's a CDBG rule that's kind of an underlying rule. So it's any loan program you set up is typically a revolving loan fund. The opposite would be kind of atypical. It's pretty standard for them to be set up that way. So that's a standard HUD rule. We didn't include it in there. There's multiple underlying HUD rules that we didn't include in here.
So in the future, for any revolving loan fund, if we decided to cease the activity of that program and take whatever balance of funds and use it for other CDBG allowable purposes, that would be allowed.
Yes, and council did that, I believe, 2 years ago in the annual action plan when we had some economic development funds. I think there was about $19,000 that we had from a previous repayment that we just generally allocated to the annual programs.
So continuing as a revolving loan fund is essentially an annual decision.
If you have a revolving loan fund, it is a revolving loan fund. There is no annual decision. If you choose to end it, then yeah, you would choose to end it at any point in time and then reallocate those funds. Otherwise, it's just perpetuated as long as it needs to be.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes, thanks. I have a couple of questions. You can hear me all right? So, Mr. Buer, Mr. Gum, I'm looking at funding details on page 518 of the packet. Specifically, item 5, the loan will require repayment only if the terms of the loan agreement are not met. So, in my beady little mind, that means if someone's not paying the loan as agreed, we're going to require repayment from somebody who's not been paying. So I get that, but my question is, what's the likelihood of collectability if someone enters into a transaction or a loan agreement with ABC Company LLC in the absence of getting a personal guarantee from the owner? Because if the loan terms are not being met, the likelihood of getting any repayment is challenging at best, unless we have something else other than an executed document by a shell LLC or a S corporation.
And that's kind of one of the pitfalls that you have in any business loan program. I mean, if you're looking to allocate these funds,
unless you have a personal guarantee. But
yeah, and that
if it's a sole proprietor, I get it. If it's, again, an LLC or typically we're looking at an S corp here. We're not going to look at a C corp structure. But I would, it's up to the rest of the council, but I would say as part of the loan program details, we probably want to have them execute a guarantee if they're going to get a loan as an entity. That's one point to raise there. The other thing on funding details and uses under allowable uses, the bottom of page 518. So we can use the funds as working capital without any restriction other than ... The expense can't be an expense that was also reimbursed as part of any other federal, state, or local assistance program. So in effect, what are we allowing here? Because if someone applied for and obtained a PPP program, okay, you can't use the Lakewood 10 grand for payroll, rent, or utilities. If you received a EIDL loan, emergency, whatever it is, the acronym, that might be for working capital. So then what could this be used for effectively? Are we being too restrictive?
No, the intent of it was not a duplication of funds. So you could use it for employee payroll. You just can't use it for the same expenses of employee payroll. So typically those PPP loans wouldn't cover somebody's entire payroll expense.
Right.
So we would pay in addition to that, or their working capital in addition to what they've already received. Okay,
that makes some sense. And then just for purposes of making the document paginate correctly, I'm looking at 517 to 518. In the top of 518 under, I think it's going to be eligibility requirements. It looks like there's a second paragraph 10. And the last paragraph 10 seems to be businesses required to execute a small business program assistance duplication of benefits affidavit. So should that be paragraph 11? And my real question is, what the heck is that affidavit ask them to state?
You are correct. That should be an 11.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically it's very similar to the Pierce County affidavit. We would be using theirs as a template, and it literally does just state that if I've received any PPP funds or any other federal funds that are related to COVID, just kind of a generic program.
And I don't know if the county, maybe the mayor can speak to this. I don't know if the county program has a similar sort of personal guarantee as part of the loan program? Likely not, because I don't think they have the same payback opportunity or requirement. But again, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not necessarily advocating that we do that. We want to make this as least restrictive as we can, but we still, if we're looking to get some repayment over time to regenerate funds, we want to give ourselves the best likelihood of success. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions on page 517 under the eligibility requirements. I just kind of want to understand the thought process of the business owner's household must be low to moderate income if the business has 5 or fewer employees, including the owner. And then at least 51% of the jobs retained or jobs created must be held by low to moderate income individuals. I just kind of want to get the idea of the thought process behind that, rather than just a blanket, we're going to try to retain jobs in the city of Lakewood.
That pretty much goes to the HUD qualifications for any loan program. So there's 2 ways. You can either create or retain jobs. So you're looking at employees. The other option is you can have a business where the owner itself is under 5 employees. He's a low income or she is a low income business operator. The thought in that case would be if you've got someone who's got 2 or 3 employees and they're using this loan and to keep them from going out of business. So you qualify the business through the CDBG program requirements with the owner's low income qualification. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Okay. Do we have any idea? We talked about the population of businesses that might be eligible, but then when you put those income characteristics in, do we have any idea of how that impacts the census of the number of businesses that are eligible?
I do not have that information. But one of the things we've tried to do as a part of this is to show on the right-hand side column what the maximum household incomes would be. So that would help people when they make application to find out whether or not their employees fall within those certain categories.
Okay. And then my last question, and this might have to do with the eligibility requirements through HUD also, on number 7, that it's just for the nonprofit or not-for-profit entities are not eligible. So what's the thought process behind that?
Dave, you want to take it, or I can give you mine? My thought process was, I mean, there's a limited number of funds. I mean, we're looking at $351,000, and the for-profit businesses, I believe there was, I don't know the number off the top of my head, 1,500 or 1,600 eligible businesses. So we're looking to do 30 to 35 loans. So we're not even really going to kind of hit the tip of the iceberg. So adding nonprofits into it would just be another level that we probably wouldn't be able to serve. So starting with for-profit businesses. The other thing too is depending on what happens, as Dave mentioned, with future rounds of funding, the state did receive $23 million. So there may be the potential for some other funds to come down in another loan program cycle to start as well. So we took that into consideration as well.
Okay.
The other part to the other part to this is the council on May 26th will receive a report on the $1.79 million. And there's opportunities for funding nonprofits in that category if the council desires to do so, and you will get information on that here fairly soon.
Good. Thank you.
I just note on that the way these ever-changing funding streams are working, it looks like there will be monies available for nonprofits, and that's generally a grant for services, and they have an administrative haircut out of that pays for employee expenses. Ms. Farmer.
Something that I was thinking about, and then it caught my interest with the Deputy Mayor's comment about a personal guarantee. There's so much that we don't know, and things are changing so rapidly. What happens if somebody simply cannot pay it back? How do we do it? What happens then?
Is that a
I
question
would,
to me or the council?
I just note that, as I share with Jason a background in a lot of time representing banks with respect to major bad loans. These loans are within what I would call life's deductible clause. As a practical matter, beyond sending a letter, making a couple of phone calls, they're probably not going to be worth chasing.
No.
And that's true for a lot of these programs dealing with COVID-19, and there's going to be a lot of slop around the edges on government expenditures.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Branstetter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to follow up on Ms. Farmer's question, I would say that, these loans are intended to try to keep businesses in business and operating in Lakewood. There's a possibility that a number of these loans won't be successful in accomplishing that, and that the business will not survive and not be repaid, and that money will be lost. I think that, however, in the case of a business that does survive but just decides not to pay it back, I think we do have some business licensing leverage to ask them to repay the loan as subject to 5 years from now, a renewal of a continuation of their business license, and that's a ways down the road. Ideally, is it structured here? Ideally, 2.5 years from now, after a year plus 18 months, the majority of these loans will have either the loan or the remainder of the loan forgiven, and will be in better economic times in the businesses that we've helped continue to be viable in the community and contributing to the community's economy.
Seeing no further hands up, I'd entertain a motion on resolution number 2020-28.
So moved.
Seconded.
And I didn't get the motion. It was moved by Mr. Wayland, seconded by Mr. Simpson, that we adopt motion number 2020-28. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I'd like to commend staff on doing a great job of synthesizing divergent micromanagement by the council. So thanks again. We now move to new business, motion number 2020-29. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2020-29, ratification and confirmation of proclamation related to hearing examiner and permitting processes executed by the city manager on May 14th, 2020 at 3:20 p.m.
This we have Ms. Wachter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, starting on page 523 of your packet is the agenda bill and following proclamation that has been signed by the city manager within his authority given the state of emergency of the city. We've appended this to the original emergency based on the extension of the governor's stay home, stay healthy, which is going to go through May and possibly further. During that time, we have several hearings, which normally would involve some level of public participation. And in my analysis of it, it looked like there's the potential, if somebody wanted to challenge that process later, they would say that robust public participation wasn't possible because of the governor's orders. Well, if we don't put through the proclamation, we're hampered on the other side by the timelines that normally go to these hearings. So we either shorten the public participation or we don't follow the timeline. But by the issuance of the proclamation, it would be a legitimate extension of the timelines pursuant to the emergency. I don't think you can always avoid challenges entirely, but you can certainly set the stage where everybody has seen what the process is, and it makes it less appealing to those who might challenge it, or it hampers their ability to successfully challenge it. So for that reason, I'm asking the council to ratify what the manager has done on these hearings. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Wachter? I'd entertain a motion on motion number 2020-29.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Moss, seconded by Ms. Farmer, that we adopt motion number 2020-29. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
Good question.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
I'm sorry, Mayor. The deputy mayor was trying to get your attention.
Oh.
I just had a question about the impact of the proclamation on other, this is only related to hearing examiner provisions, but none other meetings, public or otherwise.
Deputy Mayor Whalen and members of the council, there's a little bit of the belt and suspenders stuff I talked about later in the proclamation that make this specifically in addition to the original emergency issuance, and not trying to take away from it in any way. And that is, again, because sometimes we get folks who want to parse those kinds of details. The other part of that paragraph says that this proclamation is to be done when the original emergency proclamation is taken away. We may go through two moves, but just in case, I wanted to make sure that this goes along with anything that we've already said. So hopefully that doesn't leave any of the holes, but that's a good question, because a lot of times when you do more than one, those kinds of questions come up.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd like to call upon our long-range and strategic planning manager, Tiffany Spear, to provide the council with a status update on the Lakewood Station District Sub-Area Planning process. Ms. Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Apologies, I'm having some technical difficulties at my end. Just one moment, please.
We see you and we hear you.
I'm sorry, one more time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And I'll ask one more time. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to continue then in this route. And I apologize, I can't hear you at the moment, but that may change once I stop sharing my screen. Okay, so this is a PowerPoint presentation that's actually located in your packet starting on page. 632. Prior to that, starting on page 523, you have a memo from me and then a number of attachments. So what this is all related to is the ongoing process to develop and then bring forward to your consideration a sub-area plan for the Lakewood Station District. And you'll be getting these periodic updates throughout the year. So this is the one for this evening, May 18th, 2020. So what you see here is the map that the council took a look at in January of this year to change the boundaries of what was originally proposed in the city's comprehensive plan dating back to 2000. And if you remember, there was a discussion had about whether or not the older version of the sub-area plan, which is the one in red on this map, and if you recall, it included at that point some of the properties below or south of I-5 into the Springbrook neighborhood. And it also did not have the little panhandle, is what I call it, up to this 512 interchange. So your action on January 13th was to change the boundaries to this boundary that you see here. And with the intent being to include the area up to that 512 interchange in order to include the transportation and freight mobility pathways that are there. And then also to take Springbrook out of it in order to have an even logical boundary at I-5 headed north or south. The northern boundary, in addition to the 512, is the 108th Street, and then the west boundary is Bridgeport Way Southwest. So it's kind of a triangle with that handle, as I just mentioned. As of last November, there was a contract put in place for Burke and Associates to be the consultant on this project, and so I've been working with them since last fall on this project, moving it forward. So here you can see again, that same shape now on the full city zoning map in the black hatch marks there. It is approximately 318 acres. And within it now you have the Sounder Station itself, which is why it's called the Station District Sub-Area Plan. Lakewood Landing, which the council's familiar with along Pacific Avenue and I-5. St. Clair Hospital, the Park and Ride at State Route 512, and then Pacific and Bridgeport as commercial areas, and then the existing multifamily residential area kind of in between the downtown sub-area and then this part of the city. In terms of public engagement, obviously we're in a strange new world. We've got the COVID-19 issues ongoing, and we also have the results of I-976, which at first glance wouldn't affect the sub-area, but actually we had been planning to coordinate with Sound Transit on this because they have planned some improvements to the station district for over the next couple of years. And so we were going to coordinate our outreach and public discussion because they both are in the same geographic area. Because of 976 and the COVID issues, Sound Transit has obviously had to change its operations and potentially its budgeting for these types of projects. But we do still have open conversations with them. And we actually will be coordinating some of the surveys we're going to be doing this spring and summer with Lakewood residents. So on February 28th, we did have an in-person stakeholder group before COVID-19 shutdown started to occur. It was a targeted group, and we had transit representatives, both Pearson Sound Transit, public utilities, neighborhood association representative, landowner, developer representatives, and then Burke and city staff were there to hear back from their perspective. What are the ongoing issues in this area? What are the pluses? What are the minuses? And given what had been included in the city's comprehensive plan already, did they see any questions, any issues that might arise from implementing that? Or was there something different that should be done? The public engagement that we are doing is going to be done in a targeted online way, as long as we need to do that. And then eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to do in person. You may recall this map that you see on the right-hand side. This actually comes from some of the information that Mr. Gum presented to you a couple of meetings ago regarding the CDBG 5-year strategic plan, but it shows the ethnic breakout within the city and different cultures or languages that might be spoken as a result in different areas. And that bottom side on the right, where you see Springbrook in particular, but a little bit north up into the Station Districts area, you have a number of minority populations. So that, coupled with some other census data that you see on the left side, we are going to make sure that everything is provided not only in English, but also in Spanish and Korean. And then if there is a request or a need for other languages that are identified, we'll work with our consultants to make sure that's available as well. So we do have a website that's been up now since the end of last year at lakewoodstation.org, and we are keeping that up to date as things move ahead. We are also working through Bryn Grimley, the city's communications person, as well as Burke staff, working with online contacts to maximize our presence virtually. We're also going to be including articles regularly in the Connections magazine as it's published, on the city's own website, cityoflakewood.us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever else the city's going to be using. So getting back to public engagement, I mentioned a survey. We're in the process of putting this together and have it sent out, we hope by the end of this month. And here's just a very beginning intro on the left there of what you see will be included in the survey. Just some general, what are your ideas for the station district in the future? What's important in the station district now? Have you been affected, and how might you be affected by COVID-19? And the intent there is to find out, for instance, are we going to have residents leaving the area because of housing difficulties, employment changes which result in housing difficulties, and or is there business owners or employees that may be relocating out of necessity because of COVID-19 or shutting down altogether? And then there's going to be questions coming straight from Sound Transit to include about the station, coupled with our own questions with how people in this area use the station, how they see it maybe needing some improvement in terms of pedestrian access from the area or things like that. And then just some identifying census type questions so we're able to figure out who's answering the survey in an anonymous way, but just understand the different demographics that might apply. We're hoping to make it short and sweet within about 10 minutes. And so that is going to be distributed not in its entirety. We're going to do it by a postcard notification to all residents and businesses within the boundaries of the sub area. We're also going to go 300 feet outside of the sub area. And then we're thinking we're going to be able to also take advantage of the sounder station itself, putting some information at the station. So as people come through, they might just notice, hey, go to this website and participate. And then we plan to do a follow-up mailer of the full survey to particular areas within the sub area that aren't answering, or a particular group if we're feeling like it's underrepresented. Those types of things we'll just track through the summer. We also are happy to have what's being called a walk shop. So these are for both adults and for kids, but the idea here is for some tactile sensate responses, meaning encouraging kids in particular to get out, walk around, or think about what do they see, hear, smell, or feel about the area? What do you like best or least? And what would you wish for? So trying to get some answers in terms of those who may be living in this area for quite a while. And then in addition, we have similar stuff for adults to answer as well. So it can become a family activity if they want to make it one while they're in their stay home, stay healthy mode. The sub-area planning folks and representatives of the Lakewood Landing project are all working together. So for instance, Becky Newton and I are frequently talking with each other about these two projects. I'm involved with their conference calls, and Becky's involved with the station sub-area calls, keeping each other up to date. And as you might see on the right side, particularly, it's more legible. As we advertise these items to the public, to potential developers, either one is talking about the other, meaning the station district materials mentions Lakewood Landing, describes what it is. And I believe you've seen most recently from Becky within the last couple of weeks, the brochure that has been developed by the team she's working with for Lakewood Landing is also talking about the fact that the station district plan is underway. So similar to what came through the council in October, November of 2018, this is a package, meaning there will be a sub-area plan with vision, goals, policies, and strategies. Then there will be a SEPA-based planned action ordinance. And if you remember from downtown sub-area or others, the idea here is there is a preemptive analysis, if you will, of a certain level of intensity of growth, of transportation, what have you, within the sub-area boundaries. And once that's done and the mitigation for all of that building and development is analyzed and determined, going forward, once it's adopted, any particular project coming forward doesn't have to redo SEPA. They're able to rely on that planned action and required mitigation. And then the third piece will be a form-based code. And this will be similar to the one in downtown. Again, that work was done once before, no reason to completely reinvent the wheel. It will look a little different, however, because the location in the city is more varied actually in the types of uses. There's going to be some standalone residential areas, as well as the station, as well as some industrial commercial spots. So there may be a few more types of streets and or building code forms included within this package, but it's the same general product that you saw related to the downtown. We have already submitted a number of things per the grant requirements by Department of Commerce, and those are the things that are attached and included in your packet this evening. So there's a situational assessment of the area that's basically what's there now. There's also an existing zoning and regulation scheme analysis. So what does the current land use and zoning allow or prohibit? There's a projected scheme for the form-based code. And then there's a public engagement plan. So all of those things now have been submitted to the Department of Commerce. And the next step for us, as I mentioned earlier, is that survey that's going to go out to the general public and businesses. And then we're going to start in on actually drafting that plan, that planned action, and the code itself. So this is a timeline. And we started this last November, December. We're in the middle, as this graph shows, of the calendar of public outreach. Come fall, we'll start to be analyzing the plan and planned action at Planning Commission. They are scheduled at this point to take some kind of action and forward our recommendation to you by the end of this year. And then come next year, the council will pick up the package, and per grant deadlines at this point, which may change potentially due to COVID. But at this point, it's scheduled for action at the council by April 1st, and then moving on to Commerce for final review and acceptance. So that is my presentation. I will end sharing my screen, and hopefully I will be able to hear if there's any questions.
Questions for Ms. Spear? Mr. Branstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Spear, to what extent does the fact that we've got a small corner of the air corridor in the northeast section of the proposed plan complicate coming up with an overarching SEPA and a form-based code, as we also have to deal with Air Force ideas about what should be there?
I'm sorry, Mr. Branstetter, I cannot hear. I'm trying to log in online right now to get to the City of Lakewood's website in case I can hear you through YouTube. I apologize.
Okay.
Let's see if it's universal. Ms. Spear, can you hear me? No.
Okay, well, maybe Mr. Buer could field the question.
I'll try. There is a small section in the northeast section of this area that is within the air corridor. It is an AC1, not in the clear zone per se.
I apologize. Okay, now I can hear if anyone has a question. I apologize.
Okay, I repeat the question, Mr. Mayor? Okay, Ms. Spear, my question was, how does the small section of the corridor in the northeast section
of this area that is within
impact having an overarching SEPA and a form-based zoning code that covers the area broadly.
Mr. Spear, my question was, how does the small section of the corridor,
There is a small section
the northeast
in
section,
the northeast section of this area that is
My
I'm
apologies.
willing to
This isn't
defer
working,
the
obviously,
answer to
and
that,
it's my fault,
uh,
probably the way I've set
so we have
myself
better
up. So
technology.
maybe I could get questions in writing and respond to you tomorrow. I'm very sorry.
Sure. Mr. Buer, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, maybe just a simplified version. Does the fact that we might have to exclude development in an air corridor cause any additional difficulties in this planning process?
Well, first of all, this is AC1, so there are certain types of uses are allowed. So we'll need to go back and check that. But generally speaking, it does not going to necessarily impact the development of the sub-area plan, because if there is an issue, these are going to be called legal non-conforming uses. They will be allowed to continue.
Okay, thank you.
And if you jump to page 542 of your packet, everyone, there's a future land use map which shows zones and land use designations. And if you see on that map, the light purple is the only area that's considered Air Corridor 1. It's basically to the east, northeast of the Park and Ride. So in terms of where development has occurred to this point within the boundaries, Air Corridor 1 is not that zone. Other way around. It is not zoned Air Corridor 1.
Any other questions for Mr. Buer, or Ms. Spear to reply in writing at a later date?
My apologies.
If that's the biggest technical difficulty we have in this, we're doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're back to Mr. Caulfield then.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, Council. Some COVID-19 updates. So I think, as I mentioned last week, EOCs both at the regional and statewide level continue to wind down. Really, the focus right now is on testing right now, and as we go out into the summer and into the early fall, as well as contact tracing, which is trying to contact people who may have been exposed to a positive virus. And then also, of course, reopening the economy. And the governor seems to be making announcements pretty much on a daily basis these days on different types of businesses and activities. And then, of course, at both the regional and statewide level, as well as the local level, beginning to plan for a potential resurgence of this in the fall or winter months when it starts to get cold again. One of the things that we continue to work on, and we'll be bringing this forward to you at your next study session, actually a week from tomorrow on Tuesday, since Monday is Memorial Day, will be some ideas on how to allocate within our community as well as within our organization the $1.79 million that the city of Lakewood has received through the CARES Act funding that actually came from the state. And really part of our focus is also in the area of social and human services, housing, as well as more funding for business assistance. And then internally, our focus is for our organization to be prepared for a future resurgence in terms of having enough PPP, as well as making changes either from a technological standpoint or from a hard asset standpoint to be able to deal with this virus, particularly when we open up our city facilities, as well as out in our park. So more to come on that. We also continue to develop financial scenarios based on what we think the impact is going to be on our general fund. I'm hoping to have some information to be able to present to you in the early part of June. One of the things that we know for sure is we're going to take it pretty hard in terms of certain taxes that we expect to see a significant decline. For example, sales tax, park sales tax, criminal justice sales tax, state shared revenues, particularly liquor taxes and fuel tax revenues, admissions tax, gambling taxes, since our casinos have been closed now going on 3 months. So it's going to be pretty substantial. However, there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel in that Congress is looking to assist local governments as well as counties and even states. Last week, Congress did pass what's called the HEROES Act, a $3 trillion economic stimulus bill that included $375 billion for local governments. If that was to make it through the Senate and signed by the president, the city of Lakewood would expect over $28 million in 2020 and $14 million in 2021. Highly unlikely that's going to be what the final package is, but that'll give you an idea in terms of the type of assistance that Congress is looking at. So again, more to follow on that. I'm hopeful that Congress will be able to come to a decision on this, in the next couple of weeks. We heard that the Senate is going to begin to talk about this after Memorial Day into early June. But the fact of the matter is that we're not going to be able to wait that much longer before we're going to have to make some hard choices in terms of changes that we're going to have to make because we're just simply not going to have the revenue available to do certain things. So just wanted to keep you appraised of that. As mentioned earlier, there's also some new potential funding that's coming down from the state. Mr. Gum mentioned that HUD announced that the state of Washington is going to be getting an additional $23 million in CDBG monies. If those dollars become available for allocation to the local level, potentially in Lakewood as an entitlement city, we could potentially receive, upwards of $500,000. And then there's some areas that that HUD has designated that those monies be utilized for. So again, if that happens, we'll be bringing that back to you in short order as well. Something that we learned late on Friday from Pierce County is that they're going to be receiving 1 million masks along with thermometers for distribution to all local businesses beginning next week. And the counties reached out to us and they would like to set up one of their 7 pickup locations for this PPP, personal protective equipment, PPE. Thank you. Why do I keep saying PPP? PPE. I'm getting that mixed up with the with Congress's financial program. I apologize. PPE. And thank you, Councilmember Moss. And so they've asked Lakewood to identify a site. So our economic development manager, Becky Newton, is working with the county on that, as well as coordinating with LPD because they have asked for just some assistance in terms of traffic control and things along those lines. So as more details and information becomes on that, I'll certainly let you know. On the not so positive side, our agency, just like many other government agencies, and I'm sure in the private sector as well, our employees are receiving notifications that there have been fraudulent unemployment claims made in their name. And at the end of last week, we had 10. I learned that we had another 2 or 3 over the weekend. Understand the state is stepping up to address this. I know they shut down their program for a couple of days to try and figure out how to address this. But unfortunately, just criminals taking advantage of this crisis for their own personal benefit. Also, the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, last week we worked, actually it was Paul Busich, our Public Works Engineering Director, along with Bill Adamson, our SSMC Program Manager, and Jake Johnson, our Government Relations Contractor, worked very diligently to prepare a letter with comments and feedback to OEA, Office of Economic Adjustment, on our concerns in regards to how the grant process or the criteria are being rolled out. We also coordinated with our federal delegation. We shared our letter with them. They too have prepared a letter and incorporated our comments and feedback as well. So we'll see what happens, to see if OEA does, and Department of Defense really takes that into consideration. We should know that in the next week. OEA will then open up the official grant application process to end of this month, early June, and then our grant application would need to be completed by June 26th. One of the items that we will need is we will need some kind of a letter of endorsement or something from the JBLM base commander. We've already reached out to JBLM and they're standing by and doing whatever and ready to do whatever they need to do to assist us on that. I included on Friday an update on the business survey that our economic development manager, Becky Newton, facilitated. It occurred over about a 2-week period. This was the second one. Unfortunately, the first one only got about 5 responses. However, this one did much better. We got 143 responses Long story short, no surprise there, just like in our region in the United States, businesses are struggling. So certainly the action you took this evening will help with that. Hopefully, there's going to be future assistance coming, whether from this body or from the state and the federal government to help out businesses. A question was raised last week, I believe, by the mayor regarding the small wireless facility franchise agreement. And, that's going to be additional gross revenue. And does the utility taxes that are collected from those entities, does it apply? Long story short, it does. And so we're going to be reaching out with a letter to those agencies, letting them know that, hey, if you're going to receive revenue for the use of your poles or your facilities, that needs to be incorporated into the revenue generated by your organization, and then our taxes would apply there. Mr. Buer notified me late last week that he came upon an opportunity through Department of Commerce, a $20,000 grant. Not a lot of money, however, it has to do with climate change. One of the things that we are going to have to do here in the near future over the next year or two is to update our comprehensive plan to take that into account. That's coming from PSRC. We do have policy language in there. However, again, it's something that we're going to have to address sooner or later. And so if we get this grant, my recommendation is going to be we address it sooner rather than kicking the can on this. More to follow on that. However, Mr. Buer has been thinking about it, and he's looking to maybe incorporate some kind of economic component into this whole process. So again, more to come on that if and when we do receive the grant. The AWC annual conference has been canceled. However, they are going to do a virtual conference, same dates, June 23 through June 26th. As a part of that, they have their annual board meeting where they, for example, elect board members. And each city has an opportunity for 3 delegates. So if any of you plan on attending that virtually and you want to be a delegate, please let myself or the city clerk know, and we'd be more than happy to get you signed up. Again, we need 3. The board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 25th from 10 to noon. And again, it'll all be done in a virtual manner. Also along the lines of AWC, their Quality Community Scholarship Program, they announced their winners for 2020, and for the 3rd time since its incorporation in 2012, a Lakewood student has been chosen and awarded a scholarship, a $1,500 scholarship, and want to extend our congratulations to Ju Young Kim, who was selected as one of the 6 winners. And I can tell you that the competition for that funding is very, very steep. So a very, very positive reflection on Ms. Kim. And I'm hoping that in the near future, when things get back to normal and you're all in the council chamber, we can invite her in and personally thank her and congratulate her for that. Also, another opportunity for the city council is that there's a sex offender policy board that is expected to convene at the request of Senator Rolfs from Bainbridge Island. She's the chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, and she's asking this board to undertake some research for improving how sexually violent predators, or SVPs, are released into the community. This has been an overarching issue for Lakewood, given that 4 SVPs, sexually violent predators, were released in the late part of 2018, early part of 2019, under the same roof into an adult family home over by Custer and 88th. And so AWC is looking for a representative to represent cities on this board, and so they're seeking names. And Mayor, I would ask if this body wants to appoint somebody from this council, let us know, and we can pass that on to AWC for consideration. Transportation projects are moving along. So Onyx is moving. Likewise, Stilican Boulevard, and then Veterans Drive kicked off today. And so it'll be very, very busy out there this summer, but certainly once those 3 projects are completed, it will certainly have a real positive improvement in ability to move traffic and under other multimodal activities. And then lastly, on behalf of Ms. Dodsworth, she wanted me to pass along that her and her team continue to work toward standing up a farmer's market. She's looking at kicking it off, knock on wood. Hopefully we can do this based on where we are. On Friday, June 19th from 3 to 7 p.m. The area would be over at Fort Steilacoom Park in the front parking lot where people can either walk or drive through. They can either do a drive-through or walk through at the farmers market. We got a great number of vendors lined up to be able to do this. This market would then run through the middle of September, so about a three-month run there. So we did put out a news release and some information on our website, including the vendors that are going to be there earlier today. So if you have an interest in seeing that, please visit our website under the farmers market. And I believe that is what I have. So Mayor, what I'm looking for, if you don't mind, if council is going to attend the AWC conference, 3 delegates, and then also if this body wanted to make a recommendation to AWC to serve on the sex offender policy board, would be more than happy to carry that for you. Thank you.
So I guess toss it out there to council. First, is anyone interested in being a delegate at AWC?
Mr. Mayor, I have already asked Brianna to register me to attend those conference sessions virtually.
Okay. Is there anyone else who's interested? I know Mr. Branstadter's done that before and is familiar with it. Perhaps not with the technology issue, but so it looks like we have one willing and able council member, and Mr. Branstadter will represent us ably. And then,
actually, Mayor, can I jump in, Mayor?
Yes.
If it's okay with this body, if there's not going to be a council member there, and we can follow Councilmember Branstadter's lead on this, but I think it would be good to have the other 2 delegates identified. And typically what you can do is you can appoint staff. So for example, I know a couple of city staff are going to be attending this, and they can serve as a delegate if it pleases this body. Okay. If not, that's fine too.
So you're looking for a straw man / woman to.
That's correct. And I know, for example, Shannon Kelly Fong last year stepped in to serve as a delegate, and I've done it in the past myself. But again, I know we're going to have several staff that are going to be attending. And so if it's okay, if they're willing to step in and be delegates as well, and then again, follow the lead of Mr. Branstadter.
That's any objections from council? No.
Every vote counts. Every vote counts.
Looks like a plan. And then the other one's the sex offender policy board. Do you, Mr. Caulfield, do you know what the commitment is with respect to that?
Offhand, I don't. I would imagine no more than once a month. I'm sure they'll be meeting remotely in the short term. Let me see if I have anything here. Yeah, I would imagine, once a month, once every 2 weeks. And then also we would make available probably Mr. Buer to help out with some of the finer details as information comes out through the process to help you as well and serve as a resource to you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm willing to serve.
Figured it should be somebody that lives in Oak Brook.
Yeah.
So if there's no objection, we'll appoint Ms. Farmer to that post, and she'll look out for her interests. So, thank you, stepping up. Anything further, Mr. Caulfield?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Caulfield?
Question.
Mr. Whalen.
With regard to the farmer's market, as I'm visualizing how this is going to work in Fort Steilacoom Park, that's the parking lot over by the playground or the very, very front parking lot across from the fields?
Yeah, it's the Deputy Mayor. It's the very front parking lot across from the fields up against Steilacoom Boulevard. Okay. And so people will be able to, you come into the park and you hang a right, and then you'll be able to loop around and then come back out the same way. And then also there's also restroom facilities there as well. And then set up and take down will be very straightforward because we'll have that over at our shop.
Okay, so that makes it easier than looking at Colonial Plaza as an alternative site.
It does, and actually we took a look at the Colonial Plaza. We strongly recommend that we don't do that. Well, number one, just logistically, it's going to cost us money to do that. No restrooms, things along those lines. And I would view this farmer's market as kind of an opportunity to kind of, bridge the gap until next year. I think when you do the farmer's market, you only really got one chance to do that the right way. And I think having a drive-through through there is, I'll just be upfront, I don't think that's the right way to do it.
I think, well, I hope for the best. I think change is challenging for folks, but we'll see what we can do.
One of the outcomes, and Ms. Dodsworth was emphasizing this to me, is that it'll be a little later in the day as well, from 3 to 7. And so far, we've got a good number of vendors who are able to do that. So that does bode well for a future farmers market.
That's certainly a positive for many residents who would love to be able to go there after work or after any Zoom call, perhaps not work, but it is work, but a time when they can attend.
Yeah, I don't know if we can really enjoy virtual strawberries.
I'm about ready to be done with virtual anything at this point.
So seeing no further questions, we'll go to council comments before an executive session. Ms. Moss?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see you guys.
Mr. Branstetter?
Other than noting that this is National Public Works Week, and I'm appreciative of the folks who are in that line of work, I have nothing else.
Ms. Farmer?
I wanted to compliment the council on its philosophy and compliment the staff on their execution of the philosophy of aggressively seeking outside funding for our infrastructure projects. I wanted to note that of the 2.3 million we awarded tonight for the Harry Todd Park project, only 512,000 came from the general fund. And of the 1.1 million for Angle Lane South project that we awarded tonight, only 350,000 came from the general fund. And that is just, that's a lot of work on behalf of staff, chasing those grants and looking for those alternative funding processes. We can't do it all out of the general fund. Can't do much out of any general fund anywhere. But I want to say that really bodes well for the city of Lakewood, and we're doing a great job for our residents. And so good job. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulkey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works theme, I'm really pleased at the progress that they're making, at least on the two that I see, the two projects that I see every day, both the Onyx one and the Stillicum Boulevard one. I'm looking forward to the Stillicum Boulevard one eventually having sidewalks. I know we've got that in the queue and we're working on those things. And so the completion of those programs. I would say thank you to staff for the small business loan program. The county has a fairly robust program. It now includes the city of Lakewood. I should probably forward something to the city manager in regards, we get a report every Friday. I don't know if you get to see it, John. We're only about 6% of the loans so far are in the city of Lakewood. But that was partly because Tacoma Big had a whole bunch of applications and they dumped them in when it expanded to the incorporated areas. So with that availability of those funds, and hopefully more funds will be made available in that program, and the program that we've got going with any additions that we can make in the future, that'll be, yeah, at least keeps some small businesses going that would otherwise go out of business. And I just hope they open pretty soon. So with that, I'm done. Thanks.
Mr. Whalen?
Thank you very much. I just want to echo comments of the other council members that tonight's work was indicative of lots of great things going on, both in public works and parks and recreation. And I hope, as I think we all hope, that the communication goes out the door to our residents to say, notwithstanding the crazy time we're living in, we are really doing, I think, yeoman's work at moving forward to accommodate many of the needs that our residents have. The Harry Todd Park renovations, the ADA improvements, the fantastic structural improvements to a park that serves low residents and lower income folks in our community is really going to be great, I think, for Tillicum. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come together. Road improvements at Veterans are going to be fantastic, as will the improvements out in Forest Tillicum Park and certainly over in Oak Brook. So yeoman's work, thank you very much for all of that. One of the things that I wanted to just suggest is, the sooner we can move through the Zoom meeting process, the better from my perspective. I would love to have a better chance to chew on the meaty subjects like the Lakewood Station District a little bit more in person. So maybe we'll get another chance with Miss Spear down the road to kind of get another bite of the apple when she brings back more information, because it's an important project and it's really hard, or at least for me, to really grasp the details without looking around the table and having some face-to-face interaction. Just me. I think it would be helpful to look at that again. It's really a good piece of work and important for the city. And the last thing, I just want to throw out, where were you 40 years ago on May 18, 1980, when Mount St. Helens blew? I was playing tennis with an 82-year-old in Spokane. He was beating my pants, by the way. He was doing a fine job at making a 17-year-old look bad, but I do remember the day vividly, as I'm sure many of you do. And I'm glad that that is something in the history books, but it was a great day of history for Washington State. Not a great impact to the state, but a great historic day for sure. That's it.
Thank you. I just note on that that remark, Mr. Whalen, I was in Hagana, Guam. Shortly thereafter, a Northern Marianas island called Pagan blew up. A very similar explosion. There were only about 40 people on the island, and they had historical knowledge from one of the elders that when that had happened 50 years or so before, there was a cave on the windward side of the island that everybody went in. They all survived. But the fallout there was literal. The Christmas trees came in refrigerated containers from the state of Washington to the Navy Exchange, and they were covered with gray dust. And we actually shook it off and collected it. And my wife used it in class. Here's some real volcanic ash. So,
we were scooping it off the streets in Spokane. It was an interesting time.
A little more somber note, but in many ways hopeful, on the diving down in the Pierce County COVID-19 statistics. Because of the absence of adequate tests, there's really no baseline. The percentage of people who are positive when tested is a function of what the target is for testing. So statistically, the only thing that is, or this, I should say, isn't accurate, the only thing that is closest to accurate is the number of deaths. A death objective event, although sometimes there can be debate as to what the primary cause is. As of today, there are 68 in COVID deaths, or attributed to COVID deaths in Pierce County. To put that in some context, there are about 7,000 deaths a year in Pierce County that occur absent COVID. Of those 68, over 40 of them are in some type of congregate or group housing facility, mostly nursing homes. Only one was of a homeless individual, and only one was a worker in some type of group care setting. So as far as tamping down the virus as it relates to actual ultimately the worst outcome of death, the Pierce County is doing remarkably well, and it's really focused on the basically where 80-year-olds are with other underlying health conditions. That being said, we're still operating to a large extent in the dark. So hang in there, and I too would like to get to a face-to-face collaboration, but it might be a while. Anything further before we go to executive session, Mr. Caulfield?
I'm sorry, also wanted to include Memorial Day is coming upon us, and a time to remember. But also, it's a time that people get out and about. And so one of the things that we're going to do beginning on Friday is we are going to open up the restrooms in our park facilities. And we have a contractor that we're going to bring by that's going to come in twice a day to clean and do things like that. And so we're going to do that beginning on Friday in advance of the weekend.
Yeah, perhaps one of the byproducts of this is the people at New Tacoma Cemetery don't have to listen to me as a keynote on Memorial Day. So that event's been canceled. So now we're going to move to a recess into executive session for approximately 20 minutes pursuant to RCW 4230-110(1) to consider the selection of a site for the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when the public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price. The council is not expected to take any final action following the executive session, the only action being to adjourn. And logistically, we're going to sign into the executive session separately. As far as adjourning, is Ms. Wachter still here?
I am still here.
Collaborate with Ms. Wachter and Ms. Schumacher. Our clerk would come back on. Are we going to leave this open and try to sign in again, or do we close this and sign in and come back to adjourn?
This is where we find out if I've been listening to Ms. Schumacher. I believe that what we do is we sign out from this Zoom meeting. We go into the other one, and you will be the person who comes back at the end of the time. I will tell you all, we have to honor our time on this one. I'm begging you, do not extend this. We provided for enough time so that we don't have to bounce back and forth that way. We'll hold the executive session and then just the mayor goes back and closes it. Madam Clerk, did you have something different in mind?
No, that is correct. So the mayor will return to the city council meeting to adjourn after your executive session ends.
We have a second Zoom link we should be clicking on just for the non-techie here, or the same one?
No, I'll give you a repeat here. If you should probably write this down, it's on my script and it's on the appointment, but the meeting, it's a separate meeting number with a password. So can everybody find that?
Okay. And so that was provided to you on your city council script for this evening, as well as an email.
Okay, I'll go look for that.
All right, because I'm going to start the 20-minute clock now, and we're in recess.
Okay. Shit. Let's see here.
Do you need me to send it to you again? Mr. Whalen?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You don't have what you need?
Well, I tried to click on the thing and it wouldn't go forward. So send it to my work email.
Okay, give me just a second.
Okay. Or they can go on without me.
It hasn't come through yet?
Nope.
I'll send it again.
Okay, there it is. All right, here we go. I have to sign in.
Be able to just hit that link.
Their password, Council 96. All right, let's see.
Schumacher. We are back in session and we're adjourned.
Thank you.